Hello everybody, and welcome to another movie review. It's been a little bit since I have done a movie review, and this time we're actually doing a dual movie review. Down below, if you want to skip the first one completely, down below in the description, that's the word, will be timestamps for the start of the first review and the start of the second review. I will try to put trailers after each one so that you guys can see a trailer, but I'll figure that out as I go along. So anyway, the first movie that I'm going to be reviewing is Paddington in Peru, and then the second one I'm going to be reviewing is Captain America Brave New World. I was saying New World Order, no, Brave New World. So I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it. I'm going to start with Paddington in Peru. So Paddington in Peru is the third film of the Paddington franchise, and it's pretty easily stated that Paddington in Peru is already a commercial success, especially because of the UK alone. So the fourth film has already been confirmed. But Paddington in Peru follows Paddington when he discovers his beloved aunt has gone missing from the home for retired bears. He and the Brown family head to the jungles of Peru to find her, determined to solve the mystery of her disappearance. They soon stumble across a legendary treasure as they make their way through the rainforests of the Amazon. So this one is directed by a different director from the previous two. From my understanding, the reason behind that is because the director of the previous two really wanted to make Wonka, last year's Wonka. So because of that, the production of Paddington in Peru was going strong, and he chose Wonka over Paddington. But apparently he will be coming back for the fourth film in the franchise. So hopefully that stays strong. But other than that, it stars mostly the same actors and actresses in this film. Not entirely the same. The mother was also filming. The mother has been replaced, so she was been replaced by Emily Mortimer. I don't remember what the actual main lady was. I can find that out pretty easily though. Paddington 2. Sally Hawkins was her name, and I believe she was filming Wonka, which could be why she couldn't make the filming of Paddington in Peru as well. She chose to stick with the director than to go outside of that. I could be wrong about that. Please do not necessarily say that is the case. It's just what I heard. But this film is still fun. Now, in some ways, I like this film more than I like the other films. There are several references to the other films in this. Characters kind of reappear. There's not necessarily always the same exact jokes as the previous two films have, but it still has the charm of who Paddington is. I kind of like this one more than both the other ones because this starts to delve more into his personal backstory, which we really haven't gotten a lot of. Now, granted, that makes sense. The first one was him kind of people getting used to Paddington. The second one was kind of the family recognizing they need Paddington, kind of, in a way. And this film is Paddington kind of exploring his backstory and finding out what he kind of wants. I'm leaving that extremely vague, and I'm leaving that extremely vague on purpose. I don't kind of want to fill in those gaps for you. And that's okay. But I will say this does star Antonio Banderas. And I really liked his character in this film. I like him a lot in general, mostly due to Puss in Boots. But still, despite that, he isn't quite a villain, yet he's not quite a hero. He has his own past he's struggling with during the course of the film, and I kind of like that. This film does have villain-esque characters, or character. It's kind of hard for me to tell. Again, It's a very easy balance to say that a character can be a villain and a character can't be a villain. But despite that, it's interesting to have a character like Antonio Banderas' character in this, who isn't necessarily a villain in my opinion, but isn't a hero. It's one of those things where he's kind of exploring who he is in a way, or fighting internally, if that makes sense. And it's very interesting for them to be able to show that and, you know, have Paddington come in contact with him. Because Paddington's views on things are very specific. And I mean, you can easily say that about everybody's, but I hopefully, if you've seen the other Paddington movies, you know what I mean by specific. And again, I'm trying to keep all of this spoiler free, because I don't really want to spoil anything for you. And I think the only thing that can really be spoiled in this movie would be the villain or villain-esque characters. And I don't think I spoiled anything on Antonio Banderas' part. I still think that answer of whether he is or is not a villain can be left up to you when you watch the film, if you watch the film. I think that's a very simple thing to, you know, decide. I think that the way the character is written, you can think he's a villain, you may not think he's a villain, you may not think some of the other characters are villains or character, you know. I'm also just spitting there. That was me literally just spitting. Sometimes I literally just put things together in my head and just kind of say them and can't formulate sentences. If you watch some of my reviews, you might actually notice that. Sorry. But anyways, sidetrack. I think this is exactly why I like this film, because it is an individual-based question sometimes. Because sometimes there's a hint of good in people, and even in villains. And I definitely know that there are villains in other movies in the past that I have looked and been like, no, that character's a villain, even with that little hint of it being good. And in some, I'm like, no, they're not. If you've seen it, let me know what you think of his character and tell me if you think he is or is not a villain necessarily. I'm on the train personally that he's not. That is my view on this particular character. But this film, and I have someone who absolutely adores the first two, mostly the second one. And that friend of mine said that this one did not keep up to the other two necessarily. And I don't know. I think this one might be my favorite, to be honest. I laughed a lot and I enjoyed. I definitely, speaking of the two movies in this review, I definitely liked this more than I liked Captain America, Brave New World. But I don't think I can really compare those. They are different companies. I mean, different movies. Sorry. I'm on IMDb and the trailer for Paddington played and Studio Canal popped up and I was just thinking of companies. So apologies about that. But I definitely feel like Paddington... It doesn't need to be this all over the top, over the end masterpiece. I think that Paddington, just the same as like sometimes Puss in Boots, even the second one, you know, I absolutely find that a masterpiece, but to other people it doesn't need to be. And to me, these Paddington movies are not masterpieces, but they're enjoyable. I'm not going to get into why I don't absolutely love the first two. It's more of a personal reason than anything else, but in the end, this one out of the three, I just enjoyed from start to end. And that is really, really good for me. And sometimes that's all you need in a film, is enjoyable. If you take your family to see this over the holiday weekend or while it's in theaters, I think everyone will leave the theater enjoying it. I don't think anyone will leave the theater being upset or not being happy with the experience that they were given. It is a fun movie. There is a nun. Anyone seen Paddington 2, you'll understand the slight joke reference I made there. And the cast is really, really good. The guy who plays the Mr. Brown also plays in Downton Abbey, and I'm excited for Downton Abbey 3, which is coming out in August. So this was a nice little carryover for me seeing him here, right? And, you know, I'm excited. I am genuinely excited to see where this franchise goes from here. I've never been more invested in Paddington after this film than I have been. But I think that's because we grew a little closer. The first two are very much, I don't know how to describe it, but are very much like, they're fun, they're not as personal into his backstory, but they're fun. You know, the bonding between the family and Paddington are there. The struggles and the tense, because there is some tense sections in those. This third one to me is more about his backstory, and we kind of get a little closer and connective to Paddington, because we do see a little bit in the previous two films about him and his Aunt Lucy, but, you know, this is the first time I really feel like the story is revolved around Paddington's backstory. And I really like that. I want more of that, to be honest with you. I definitely feel like that would be worthwhile. So, but I'd give this a 5 out of 5. I enjoy it. It reminds me a lot of other kids' movies, though. Why is that doing that? I am so sorry. It reminds me of a lot of other kids' movies, though, because there is several other kids' movies that take place in a jungle. It's not really an uncharted territory, pun intended, but it doesn't need to be. I think that it's good enough the way it is, and I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. Sorry. So, yeah, I'd say 5 out of 5. And I would say if you are interested, if you like the other two, go watch this in theaters. I think it's a little kind of thrown away thing where sometimes people don't go watch things in theaters for one reason or another. But if you want more of something, and I'll tell this completely honestly to you, if you want more of something, you have to see it in a theater. You have to pay for that ticket. And it's because most studios, unless they make a TV movie or a TV show, obviously Paddington in Peru is already a commercial success because it released in the UK back in November. So it's been out in the UK for like 3 whole months even. And it's made a lot of money there, and I'm sure it had other releases in other countries too before it came to the US in February. And an early access showing or two across the US, plus probably other places that haven't had it released. It's made back a lot of money, and it's going to be guaranteed to make more money on this holiday weekend. So either way, I don't think it entirely matters, one way or another, if this is making money, because I think that they would have been better if they left it in January, because it would have had all the big theaters in January when it released, because nothing else really stole the market around that point. So Paddington probably would have had everyone's eye. So I think releasing it in February is not the best move, especially against a Marvel film. I know the audiences are slightly different, but also to keep that in mind, Marvel is typically much known as a family brand. And I don't necessarily mean family in the sense that, like, it's for every family, but a lot of people do go with their families to watch Marvel movies. And for Paddington and Peru to come out the same week as a Marvel movie, you're not only losing most of the big theaters, but you're also risking, if the Marvel movie is good and popular, the movie's name, Paddington, to be thrown to the sidelines because of how well Marvel is known for, especially coming off of things like Deadpool and Wolverine and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And even though people say Marvel's dead, I think that's more of a meme than people actually think that. So I definitely feel like it's very, very likely and very, very possible that people will go see the Marvel movie on this upcoming weekend. And I definitely feel like, even at most, kind of like how Mufasa performed, where at the start it maybe wasn't too strong, but then it got it went constant. Like, it's still playing, and it surpassed Sonic at the worldwide box office domestically. That was not a good sentence. I said worldwide and domestic in the same sentence. Domestic box office, and has surpassed Sonic at the worldwide box office, but domestic more importantly, because Sonic was for quite a while still at the worldwide box office. Now, what I will say is I do not hate Mufasa. I know this is, sidetrack, but there's a lot of shit, pardon me, a lot of stuff going on the internet involving this. But Sonic is the better movie of the two, but Mufasa performed better. And I feel like most audiences agree that Sonic was the better of the two, but that does not mean that Sonic is as wide of an audience range as Mufasa is. So, anyways, Paddington in Peru, really, really good film. Very, very enjoyable. I will watch it again. I'll probably own it too when it comes out. But yeah, so. Anyways, trailer should be playing now-ish, hopefully, for Paddington in Peru.
Thank you for using PhotoMe.
Oh, not at all. Thank you for having me.
Make sure your face is within the red circle.
Paddington, there's a letter from Peru.
Dear Paddington, to your Aunt Lucy. She's gone, and we have no idea where she is.
She raised me when I was orphaned as a cub.
If you ever get lost, just roar.
I know I can find her.
It's not as if we can drop everything and fly to Peru.
To inflate your life, Jackie.
I didn't mean now, Paddington.
Welcome to Peru.
Your aunt seems to have set off into the dangerous jungle.
Aunt Lucy would never give up on me. We have to find her.
But the Amazon is quite... large.
Excuse me, sir. Is this boat for hire?
It is your lucky day.
Paddington, what are you doing in there?
This family stays together. We'll find her, Paddington.
This way. Thank you. Just round this corner. Never touch this plant.
What are you, bear?
Aunt Lucy always says you can take the bear out of the jungle, but you can't take the jungle out of the bear. Oh. That was close. It's called a hard stare, Mr. Hunter. And it's for when people have forgotten their manners.
Captain America, Brave New World. So Captain America is the newest Marvel film following Captain America, who is now played by the Falcon, or Anthony Mackie in particular. And first, let me get my thoughts out of the way about Anthony Mackie. Great actor. I think he did really well in this movie. And granted, I want to mention this straight off the bat, not holding any information back. I have not seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I tried watching the first episode, and I did not really like it. I am going to watch it before Thunderbolts, though, because I know that there's some characters that appear in there, and on top of it, I want the full experience of Captain America Brave New World to see if my mind changes at all. But here is my personal thoughts on this. I think Marvel rushed Anthony Mackie to this point. I think that they wanted to make this movie, and I think they wanted to make this movie sooner than later. And what I feel like is I feel like Captain America Brave New World, it feels kind of unearned, if that makes sense. And what I mean by that is I feel like we needed a movie, and again, keep this in mind, I've heard mixed things about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but keep it in mind. We needed a movie where Cap handed the shield to Bucky, and then Bucky realized that he could not do this. And I really wanted to see kind of a downward spiral for him. And again, maybe it's in the show. I've heard some of it is in the show like that, but not a lot. Because it never sat well with me that Captain America handed the shield directly to Falcon. Not because he doesn't earn it, or not because he couldn't have earned it, but because Marvel never showed him earning it. There's 2 whole movies of the relationship between Captain America and Bucky growing. Literally 2 movies revolved around their friendship in some capacity. And their bonding from there to Endgame is much stronger than the bond between Captain America and Falcon. And not only saying that, but Falcon was really much a side character. There was nothing that really gave us the warrant for him to earn the shield. Now, that is not Anthony Mackie's fault. That is the fault of the writers and the fault of where they chose to go with Marvel. So I'm not saying that this movie shouldn't exist because of that. I think that this movie is perfectly fine in its own right. It was very much enjoyable. But I definitely feel like we could have had more in between Endgame and here, and I wish the shield would have been handed directly to Bucky. And then Bucky would have given it to Falcon. And they could have done something too where he's like, Cap, you know, Steve had a conversation with me when he handed me the shield, and they could have done this off screen, you know, and he could have explained that, you know, he told me that if anything ever happened, he wanted you to have it next. Something like that. I think that would have filled the gap, and it didn't need to be long. I think I would want one movie, right, where you see Falcon actually helping Bucky, right, and you see him taking up that mantle, and Bucky having the realization that that is not for him, for one reason or another. Now, granted, again, keep this in mind, there may be something like that in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I want to watch that before Thunderbolts, so if that is in there to the point where you think that would solve my problems, then please ignore my comments on this. But from what I've heard from that show, it's still not enough for me to warrant all of the time that they put into both Bucky and Cap, Steve Rogers. But back to Brave New World. This is another movie where the marketing really hindered the movie's kind of, how do I say, it's kind of punch, you know, like when you're watching the movie, obviously I forewarning spoiler potential. I don't know if it's spoilers because it's in pretty much every single marketing piece at all, like every single trailer, every single poster, it's everywhere. But Red Hulk is in this movie, and the entire movie is build up to Red Hulk. It's literally the entire movie. The villain is, end goal is that. So because of that, I really feel like this movie's punch, its pizzazz, is gone. I had my problems with something like Companion, where its trailer gave away too much, but to be fair to that movie, it only gave away the first 30 minutes. This movie is giving away the biggest thing in the movie in all the marketing, and that's probably because they couldn't figure out anywhere else for the marketing to go. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way, it's just there was nowhere else for the marketing to go with it. Why is it doing that again? I'm sorry. Because the marketing's not able to, it's not able to capture anything else to draw in the audience's attention, right? And plus, I did have another friend of mine mention that there is marketing, right? They want to market Red Hulk, and not just market him, but they want to sell him plushies, tins. I mean, I have a plushie and a tin of Red Hulk. Like, in general, that is what they want to do. And it's fine because, it's Marvel, but I also feel like they aren't as confident in their own abilities as they once were, because they can't guarantee that it's popular. And that's okay. Granted, I'm not upset at them for that. And granted, I feel like a movie like this, where people know who Red Hulk is and know the character, probably are a little more likely to have seen something like this coming than people who don't know what it is. So this, compared to something like Companion, which is in its own a completely new property and unknown, I am still more upset that Companion showed the first 30-minute spoiler in their trailer than Captain America did with Red Hulk. Now, granted, I think that does make this movie take a decent-sized hit, but I actually really enjoyed this. Again, Anthony Mackie does a really good job. I think what makes him so good, as Falcon, and finally getting to see him in the spotlight as Captain America, is his own differences, and they point those out in the movie. There's literally a line, and it's in the trailers, where Harrison Ford's character says, "You're not Steve Rogers," and he's like, "Yeah, you're right, I'm not." And they actually show him using his own things. He's not trying to copy Steve Rogers. He's trying to be himself. He's trying to be Sam Wilson. And, at the very end, too, he has kind of like a friend who looks up to him. And non-spoiler wise, but that friend aspires to be like him. And that friend particularly makes a note that he doesn't want to be Captain America or want to be like Captain America. He wants to be like Sam Wilson. And that right there, to me, is what sold me, right? To me, that is who Captain America is Sam Wilson. But Captain America is Steve Rogers. And that's the thing, is like, Captain America is a title. And I think a lot of people's fears, and it's always about change, right? Change is always going to be a factor in everything. And I feel like some people's fears is, and for me specifically, was that it was rushed. I was worried that this was all going to be very rushed and very quick and very unpolished. And in some ways, a couple of the things in the movie can feel that way. Not much, though, granted, but I feel like I had more problem with some of the shots, like the cinematography in this one. Like, Captain America feels a certain way, right? Like, they do a very good job. If you watch the first couple, there's a lot of cool, like, up close and personal shots, kind of like when they make it feel kind of claustrophobic when Steve Rogers is fighting a lot of the time, I feel like, if I recall correctly. And especially at the beginning of this film, there were a lot of wide shots, like, away from Sam Wilson, Captain America. And I wish that they would have kind of mimicked that a little bit. Now, granted, I do appreciate it, but that's the type of fighting style. Now, granted, he also does have his own different fighting style, so maybe it worked better for the shots, but I didn't quite like some of that. I like the up-close and personal feeling of that, but it changed as the movie went along. It was just a little bit at the beginning, and then it didn't fall back into the same thing they did with the other ones, but it definitely felt more up-close and personal, which I liked. But all the actors in this movie did a really good job. I will say Harrison Ford, being as old as he is, really sold this movie for me. He was the highlight of the movie for me by far. He actually plays an old character, which brings me to my next point, and I don't think this is hard to say. I'm not going to give any specifics, but this feels more like a sequel to The Incredible Hulk than it does a Captain America movie necessarily. And they've done this a couple of times with some things, like they've dropped some other characters into things like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, and I think it was Black Panther 2, possibly, or one of the other movies. They were trying to set up shows, And again, don't dislike it at all. I'm still completely fine with it being a Captain America film, but I kind of wish that they had just made a Hulk sequel and included Mark Ruffalo in it, because Mark Ruffalo really hasn't had his own Hulk movie, which is okay, but I really wish that they had just kind of done that. But I will say, I think everyone will be at least liking the fact that this feels like one of the first movies in a while that's actually connected to the MCU, which is good, because even though there are some great movies like Deadpool and Wolverine, and I think Deadpool and Wolverine holds a very important place in the MCU, because that is looking for the future of the MCU and combining things. Fantastic Four is going to be the real start of what that started. But I really do feel like this movie, in turn, even Guardians 3, which I absolutely love, this movie is the first one that feels like they're starting to reconnect that tissue that was kind of falling apart in the MCU and starting to reform that. I think Thunderbolts, I think Captain America, this is well received enough. I think people will be excited for the future, maybe hesitant a little bit, but in a much better place than they used to be after things like the Marvels. So I think that it'll be good from here on out, but Thunderbolts is going to be the real test, because Fantastic Four is going to sell no matter what. I just feel like that's like a Deadpool and Wolverine situation where it's just going to sell. It may not make $1 billion, but it's definitely going to sell, and it's definitely going to make money. I think Thunderbolts is the real key, because Captain America and Sam Wilson are at least known. Bucky's really the only character that people care about necessarily in Thunderbolts. No offense, but like, that's okay to me. I'm excited for Thunderbolts. I'm excited to see where the MCU goes, but I'm gonna be honest. This is like, again, as I mentioned earlier, I liked Paddington and Peru more than Brave New World, and I definitely feel like, in the end, it definitely could have been better, Brave New World, and that's okay. In the end, every movie doesn't have to be amazing, right? Every movie doesn't have to be the best thing that's out on the market right now. Sometimes you just want to enjoy a movie and come out of it and say, hey, look, I watched this and I enjoyed this, and there's that. Which a lot of time is a lot of movies. Like, even though I liked Paddington and Peru more than this, Paddington and Peru is still one of those movies where you go in and you come out and you've enjoyed and you go on with your life. The Captain America Brave New World is no Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 to me. You know, it's not like this movie I absolutely adore and I am enthralled by the characters, but Harrison Ford, I will say, his character in this film, I definitely was enthralled by. His acting really sold it, and every time he was on screen, I really was involved in the story. And there are some cool action scenes, and I liked that, you know? And Anthony Mackie does a good job of helming this movie, and overall, I think it's pretty solid. I'd give it about a 3.5 out of 5, I think, right now. I think I also do need to see, because that's without me seeing Falcon the Winter Soldier. I need to see Falcon the Winter Soldier and see if I still think that this movie is that good or not. I'll probably wait until this movie comes to Disney Plus and then watch it again. So, you know, keep that for what you will. But I have a feeling it'll be on Disney Plus in the next, like what? May, so probably by April it'll be on Disney Plus. Give it like 3 months, and then May will be Thunderbolts, so people can watch it again at home before Thunderbolts comes out. I'd assume, but yeah. So why did that? I was scrolling up and it went down, but I definitely think that they do a very good job of, you know, enthralling you in this story, and the actors really do sell it. I don't think that there's a lot of CGI. I'm sure there's definitely some in Captain America, but I'm trying to think how much. I'm hoping less than half of this movie is CGI. Hoping a lot of it is practical. But I'm hoping Marvel realized their mistake with some of their previous movies being too CGI. Now, granted, some of the movies like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 have to be, because you can't get space shots without CGI. There's just no way that that's happening. But, you know, it's not the worst thing ever if it is a lot of CGI. I'd be okay with that too. But yeah, in the end, and I did not mention a couple people as well, but that's okay. A couple of actors. There's at least one other known actor that I did not mention, and that's fine by me. I don't need to mention every actor that everyone knows in the movie. But yeah, so I enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed both. Again, as I mentioned, I like Paddington and Peru more, but I feel like in the end, it's up to you guys to decide. So if you have interest in either of these movies, also off of anything that I have said, please go ahead and go check them out for yourself. As much as I, appreciate you guys watching these reviews, in the end, you should always watch the movie yourself, even if you disagree with what I think. And Marvel, I think, is one of those best instances, because there's some people that I have met that do not like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. There are some people that I've met that love the Marvels. So, judge for yourself. I don't think that this movie is atrocious, and if that helps, and I think it was enjoyable, if that helps you have interest to go seeing it and decide what you think, I hope that does. Or if you're like, no, that stuff that you said didn't make me interested in the movie. But I hope you guys don't take what I say and take that and make that the end all. Decide for yourself, because you could find something in this movie that you like way more than I did, or you might find something in Paddington and Peru that you made it like it even more than I did, or I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case for either of these movies, but you never know. So if you are interested, go check them while you can. It will release in theaters, or wait, and then if you're unsure, wait until Disney Plus, or wait until it's renting and watch it that way. But either way, I hope you guys do check out something if you can. Enjoy it. And yeah, let me know what you think if you've seen these in the comments below. I will hopefully be putting a trailer right before my outro for Brave New World, but I'll decide if I want to. And the only reason I say that is because, I do feel like the trailer gives too much away, and somehow a different friend of mine was able to keep the information about Red Hulk, which I apologize if anyone didn't want to know that and they somehow avoided it and I just ruined it for you a little while ago. I'm sorry. I did try to give a warning right before, saying that possible, so, but yeah, I don't know. It's a very hard situation, but if you want to check down the trailers, I will link them for sure in the description below. And also keep in mind, for my channel's purpose, if you're interested in uploads, I will be updating my upload schedule for at least the next week soon. I am working on it still. I know that this is the last video on the release schedule currently that is scheduled to come out. So I apologize about that, but I'm working on trying to get the schedule going. So we will see what I do about that. But yeah. So thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.